Hello again, vinyl community. Well, right after posting my last video, I took a trip up to San Francisco for a vinyl safari, and I'm back to show you what I picked up. And the first item of business is Julius Hemphill, Coon Bidness. Now, a title like that will make you expect something pretty greasy, but it's deceptive because this starts off with some pretty delicate chamber music-like offerings, and the cello of Abdul Wadud kind of sets the tone for that. But on an album with Hemphill and Arthur Blythe and Hamiet Bluyett all on saxes, and culminating in a sidelong 20-minute track called The Hard Blues, you know this is going to get a lot more intense as it goes on. So this is a really cool album. On the back we have a poem from Julius Hemphill and some interesting little cryptic comments on the pieces by Wilma Moses, as well as Michael Kuskuna producer notes. This is a 1975 release on Arista Freedom, as is this one. This is a 1975 release of Cecil Taylor. The recording is actually a concert from 1962. Cecil Taylor Trio with Jimmy Lyons on sax and Sonny Murray on drums. Nefertiti, the Beautiful One Has Come. Double LP on Arista Freedom. Great cover art. And another great jazz pianist, Anthony Davis. This is a 1980 release on India Navigation, and like the Julius Hemphill, I was able to score this album. This was still sealed. Solo piano offering titled Lady of the Mirrors, and he also gives us a poem on the back, as well as an insert with further liner notes and a little silhouette of Anthony Davis's massive afro. Very delicate and involved, rather classically oriented music, and the notes he includes have him being kind of defensive about complaints that his music is too European in nature. And that's certainly not a valid complaint, because while he does draw from a classical tradition, very obviously the results are wonderful and very personal. So that's a really good album. And this one is one of the great British eccentrics, Lol Coxhill, Welfare State. This was released on the Virgin subsidiary Caroline, again 1975. And this is a lot of short pieces written for Welfare State, which was a kind of performance art group or experimental theatrical group. And the pieces often are very jaunty little tunes. Some of it is like British fairground music. Some of it is like hymns. And then it just sort of gradually sucks you into some really oddball avant-garde bits. And this also includes a poster with some photographs of the pieces that the performance art troupe does. I don't know if I'll be able to show this very well. So that was Lol Coxhill and on Caroline, and then this one, very similarly, is a split album from 1974, side one being Stephen Miller, The Story So Far, and side two being Lol Coxhill, Oh Really. They're interlinked. The Stephen Miller side, Stephen Miller being very much a staple of the Canterbury sound. This is mostly solo piano, both electric and acoustic piano. A couple of tracks have Laurie Allen on drums, and Uncredited, the last track is actually a quartet with Law Coxhill, and the Law Coxhill side begins with the same quartet of Stephen Miller, Law Coxhill, Archie Leggett on bass, and Laurie Allen on the drums. The second part being reprise for those who prefer it slower. And Law Coxhill's side, while Stephen Miller's is pretty jazzy, Law Coxhill's is just eccentric. He goes from bossa nova with contribution by Kevin Ayers and Robert Wyatt to a sort of meditative organ and soprano improvisation, to a piece called Tubercular Balls, which is flexitones with echo. Very brief, fortunately. So another album that is split between two related artists. Michael Mantler, 13, and Carla Bley, 3/4. 3/4 or 3/4. It is in 3/4 time, so I think the title is a reference to the time signature. Orchestral pieces with piano. In both cases, they've had the musicians double their instruments through overdubbing, so they're able to get with relatively few musicians. You can see they've got quite a few, but they're able to marshal what seemed to be much larger orchestral forces through the overdubbing. And Michael Mantler's piece is quite intense. Carla Bley's is more whimsical, minimalist. It starts off a bit sparse and almost Satie-like, but begins to get more quirky and distinctly Carla Bley as it goes. This also includes an insert with some credits and other offerings from the Watt label. 1978 album from Jack DeJohnette, New Directions. You know this is a classic by the Personnel, with Jack DeJohnette, of course, John Abercrombie on guitar, Lester Bowie on trumpet, and Eddie Gomez on drums. Whether it's vintage classic ECM, what more needs to be said about that? Next is Todd Machover. This is a 1984 release on CRI. It's a bit late. This is music for instrumental forces and computer-generated sounds. The first side being an orchestral piece, with the orchestra being the Ensemble Intercontemporain, with Peter Eötvös conducting. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. And that piece is light. The second side is Soft Morning City, which is a piece for soprano voice, double bass, and computer sounds. The double bassist being Barry Guy. The words are taken from Finnegan's Wake. Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake are like my two favorite books in the world. So this piece, based on the final Anna Livia Pluribel soliloquy from Finnegan's Wake, certainly caught my attention, but I have to say that I don't think the setting really does justice to the literature, but cool to have. And finally, this one cost me the grand sum of $1, and it is a 1968 first pressing of Switched On Bach by Wendy Carlos, who then went by Walter. And this is the original cover, which Walter Carlos and Rachel Elkind hated, and they made Columbia change it immediately. But this is, for its age and for its price, in pretty nice condition. And I even have documentation that it was formerly owned by Ginevra Vitelli. So Ginevra, if you're out there, I've got your album. Ha ha ha. Well, that was my trip to San Francisco for this Labor Day weekend. It is Labor Day here in America. If you're not in America, it is Monday. So thank you very much for watching. Be well, and I will talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.